I met a gypsy.
Being famous or like getting famous in that way ever feel weird? Or like, did you ever have those kind of like stop and think about it moments? Because it is a pretty weird thing to get quote unquote famous because you're still the same person, but it's like there's something different, you know?
Fame affects people, you know, in a lot of different ways. I mean, I think I always say this, you know, I would be famous around a racetrack.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Around the nature of a racetrack. So if I'm around an atmosphere like, hey, we're in Anaheim, okay, you know, everyone's
you're
around.
Famous
I'm
there.
famous in that town for that night.
Yeah.
But the beauty of what was going on with us is we were wearing helmets.
Yeah.
So if you weren't a super big fan, you might know my name. And even still today, people know my name. They don't know me.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful in a way that we were always wearing our helmets. And so now I can walk around and be, Tiger Woods can't walk around.
No.
You know, Michael Jordan can't walk around. I mean, those guys were famous, real famous, way much more famous than any of us. But they weren't wearing a helmet, so they weren't sort of protected. You know, their face was out there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the sacrifice when you're that guy and you're making that kind of money and your face is out there. I mean, it's like being Shaquille O'Neal or something. You know,
yeah.
Those guys are super famous. So I feel pretty normal until you get around a track.
Yeah.
Then it kind of is a little bit strange. You know. It's never been nothing weird to it.
Yeah.
It's been cool. I mean, been able to use it to my advantage, obviously. There's never really been any negative play over it.
And so, but that time though, when you were like filming everything and the parties and the girls and like that, like that's where I can imagine you would have felt famous. Like you would have felt like a rock star. That's maybe a better way of saying it. It's like you were kind of a rock star.
Yeah.
And you can kind of like do and say and be and kind of.
You can do and be and however you want to be as long as you're winning.
You could be like, yeah.
You can do whatever you want as long as you're winning.
Yeah.
But you remember we didn't have any internet at that time. There was no like phone media, like
no one
people
could take
catching
a picture of you doing shit.
Yeah, I mean, we had those crazy box cameras that you half the time you threw them away. You never even developed any film. But I'm stoked we grew up in that because we did some dumb shit, right?
Yeah.
That people might not have looked like that was very cool or whatever. I mean, never mean for sure. I'm not mean by nature, but you know, look, we were trying to grow up and trying to figure out how to be adults.
Yeah.
And acting stupid as kids, right?
With money. And fame.
With money and a little bit of fame, and the doors were open to do whatever you wanted to do, right?
Yeah. And you were famous enough in like, I think to put myself in the time, like I remember when I first came here, 2010, and I'm like hanging out with Dean Wilson and Tommy Searle and Josh Hill, and like those guys were like famous here in this town, and like you built this scene to where like a professional dirt bike rider, like chicks know who that is. You know what I mean?
No.
Like that.
And that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, wherever we went, like I said, I was very popular within the race crowd.
Yeah.
But if I went somewhere where there was no race and no race happening, and I was just somewhere, you'd get a couple guys like, oh, hey, what's up? You know, like, but they were the guys that were watching ESPN or Moto World 2 or whatever it was back in the day, or somehow saw a race on something, you know,
like hardcore fans.
Yeah. At 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night or something, you know? So that was an advantage we had, right? So we could still, the parties and all the stuff you saw on video was long gone by the time it came out on video.
Yeah, true.
Right.
You didn't care that people
back
saw
to
it.
Being athletes and whatever, you know, that was off season, you know, shenanigans really. And so that was good because we didn't get too crazy and it wasn't happening like live time all the time where you actually had to be the athlete.
Yeah.
You know, people remember that stuff because it was so off the wall and unique, right? It wasn't normal to see us doing that stuff. So those are the things that people remembered. But we were finely tuned athletes. We were training hard and riding hard. So, but just not scared to have fun.
Yeah. So. And was there the same perspective that like the teams and the factories had on that sort of stuff back then? Because nowadays it's such an, like if a team found out.
No, you mean?
Oh, dude, like, can you imagine?
Is it?
Well,
or is it just because the guys don't do it? They just don't put that on themselves.
Well, I mean, I know when probably the last. I was probably around the last generation of dudes that partied, and yeah, the teams fucking hated it, like big time. You know,
I don't. Again, if
you're winning,
you can do whatever
Yeah.
the f you want.
you breeze through your whole career purely based on.
I
like,
came away unscathed
Yeah,
because
you
I
just
was
won
winning.
everything.
Yeah,
and like you didn't have to play head games with no one because you were the man.
Yeah.
Like even when you watch you watch Steel Roots or you watch Terra Firma, like
Yeah.
you're out there with the guys and you just better than them at dirt bikes. In like every single scenario. So it's like you
Yeah.
go riding the hills, you're the winner. You
Yeah,
go to
yeah.
Anaheim 1, you're the winner. You go to the party, you're the winner. Like you
Yeah.
just got to kind of be that guy.
It was just smooth sailing, and as long as the doing whatever it was not affecting my race results, then
no one
I
cared.
could just continue to do it. And they're like,
Well, and then you like kind
he's
of
doing
owned
his
the
thing.
teams too, in a way. Like when you were in the Steel Roots
Yeah.
era and you were on Yamaha, like you
Yeah.
were kind of the boss there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, it was wild. I mean, even for my status in Supercross, it was wild, the people that would come to Supercrosses, a lotly because my publicist.
Yeah.
Like Tommy Lee was coming around with Pam Anderson. Then there was like, you know, the girls that were in Charlie's Angels with us, right? It was,
Is that how Kerry met Pink?
no,
Did they meet through? Oh, he might have been on the music video, I think. Remember there was like
They
the
had-
Charlie's Angels for the film?
yeah, I was
And
in
then
that. She wasn't in that though. She wasn't, right?
Why is there's like a song coming to my mind where she was like in it.
She was.
Maybe I'm tripping.
I think X Games had a party, and it was the X Games connection. He was freestyling, and she was coming up, and then they had a venue, and she might have played.
Yeah, okay.
And it was kind of. Do you remember like MTV Sports? Remember that?
Nah.
Oh, so that was really cool because MTV Sports was like basically an X Games thing with music and the whole thing.
Oh, like a
And
festival kind of deal.
Kind of thing,
yeah.
and that's how a lot of people met up at that time.
Huh.
It wasn't a racing thing. I don't know exactly how Carrie and her met, but
But so they were coming to the race, like that kind of
Yeah, I
level
mean, there was
was
just
coming
like-
to the races.
yeah, like Vince Vaughn was coming around, and you know, gosh, what's the guy's name? He has his own radio show on satellite right now. Anyway,
But that kind of interest was
yeah,
there.
music was there. Actors were there. Actresses were coming around and hanging around, and they were all coming to see Supercross.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they would all come to my truck, right? So I got to see them all, meet them all, and it was really a cool time.
Yeah.
But that was when Supercross was, you know,
Really on
it
the
was
come
really
up.
yeah, it was on the come up big time. It was big,
Yeah.
and it was just a kind of a because I'm, you know, when you see someone way famous comes around, you're like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you realize, oh, you're not really that famous. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Big actor comes along, you're like, oh, okay, I've seen that dude in about 10 movies.
Yeah.
You know, so just makes you realize like, oh, hey, there's a whole nother world out there.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, gypsytales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.